I call the 1,559th meeting of the General Student Senate and 12th meeting of the 45th session, which I never read, but I chose to today. Just to put that up there, this meeting is being recorded. First, I will read land acknowledgements. The University of Maine student government recognizes that it is located on Marsh Island in the homeland of the Penobscot Nation, where issues of water and territorial rights and encroachment upon sacred sites are ongoing. The Penobscot homeland is connected to the other Wabanaki tribal nations, the Passamaquoddy, Maliseet, and Micmac, through kinship, alliances, and diplomacy. The University of Maine student government also recognizes that the Penobscot Nation and the other Wabanaki tribal nations are distinct, sovereign, legal, and political entities with their own powers of self-governance and self-determination. Next, the clerk will call the roll.
Stephen Crawford, Cynthia Shelmerdine, Nate Fang,
Here.
Memphis Peterson,
Here.
Jordan Thompson, Neil Rocky, Kate Kemper, Hayden Buzzell,
Here.
Samuel Brown,
Here.
Callie Warren,
Excused.
Elizabeth Oldfield,
Excused.
Joshua Bone,
Here.
Zoe Stegovitz, Vassar Harvey, James Reader Stewart,
Here.
Bo Mishu,
Here.
Meredith Waters, Darren Martone,
Here.
Kyle Ricker, Sean Jernigan,
Here.
Tom Bogarts, Tim,
Here.
sorry. Madeline Howard,
Excused.
Michael DeLorde,
Here.
Keegan Tripp,
Here.
Paige Allen, Miles Moore,
Here.
Julian Over, Jacob Chaplin,
Here.
Hope Carroll,
Excused.
Kevin Olson,
Here.
Olivia Britton, Riley Mills,
Here.
Kristen Friend, Amanda Levesque, Jacob Harquist,
Here.
Anna Blanchett, Natalie Bowman, John Guzman,
Excused.
Here.
Emery Clifford, Castle here, Dylan DeMarchant,
Here.
Danny Sedaka,
Here.
Lauren Sedaka.
All right. I am now looking for approval of the 2024 minutes and this agenda. Vice President Peterson.
The 4/9/2024 minutes in this agenda.
Second.
If that's the pleasure of the Senate, that's adopted. Once again, we have no Robert's Rules tip of the week, and we'll move into general good and welfare. Any non-member may address the Senate for not more than 5 minutes. Seeing none, we will move on to club maintenance, starting with sports management for preliminary recognition. Do we have a speaker? All right, you can take the podium down there. You ready?
Hello, everybody. I'm Noah Creachin. I'm the president of the Sport Management Club. So this is just a brand new introduced club by advisor Nicholas Swim. It's with this new club in the business school. It's all about the sport management major that was just introduced. As you know, like Spiffy and other clubs within the business school, they're all based around that one major that everybody's looking for. So with this newly introduced major of sport management, we want to create that opportunity for majors within these types. So we want to provide engagement to the sporting industry for students who desire to pursue a major in sports management. Our mission is to provide opportunities for professional development, empowering members to strengthen their personal brands and stand out in the competitive world of the sports career. So there's 5 things that this club is really going to center themselves around. Sorry about that. So networking is one. This is building a base with others. This is more of an outside thing with networking. It's like building with other sport organizations and sport professionals. With building outside, it also includes the future alumni that we are looking for. So having them mentor our current group and helping them lead a way for current members to help them get internships or jobs when they get out of college, including other sport professionals, having them come speak here and getting them included in talking to us. With professional development, that really is just based on when one of those professionals coming up to you, are you ready to speak, talk about who you are as your brand? Are you ready to speak about who you are, why you want that job, and having like strong resume, cover letter, having written the one you have to go into that circumstance. So connections is one way through, it's like an interior way is what we're gonna focus on. So like having well known through a business school, having remember an internal web is what we're gonna call it. And it's mainly learning from officers within the club. So having anybody who wants to come to us when they need them. So job pathways is the fourth thing that we're looking for. So that's narrowing down the options within the sports field. Sports could be in so many different fields within sport. So finding exactly what you want, so you can get exactly what you want for a career, to enjoy your career, because that's what everything's here for. Also finding graduate schools within sport. We've noticed here, since it's such a new major here, there's not that opportunity at the University of Maine, so finding something suitable for the students would be greatly appreciated. And the last one that we have is meaningful experiences, so creating volunteer experiences or any conference opportunities to find the correct job or pathway for the students. A lot of students get hands-on opportunities and experience within the sports field and let them have operations of sports and get the experience on the resume. One thing major for this new club is gonna be that new golf tournament that has been introduced throughout the Maine Business School. It is being produced by all sport management majors, and all the funds will be into this club. So within the next 5 years of this club, we'd like to build a brand for it, make it well known, as all of you are just being introduced to it now. We'd like to make it known by next year. Also building that strong alumni web that we have, and with past alumni and also future upcoming alumni that are majoring in this new major. Having alumni based to job locations and opportunities that they could contribute to the club is what we're trying to do. Also doing our part in the community is one of the major things within that club. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for our speaker, Senator Harvey?
How many members do you currently have?
We're currently at 12 members.
Representative Guzman.
Yeah, I remember speaking with Nick himself, and he stated, you were stating that it's for sports management majors, but he stated that it would be open to anyone
Yes,
interested.
that's just sport management majors, but it's gonna be primarily based around, but it's for also people who want to be included in the sport as like an industry itself.
Senator Bell.
You know, the sports management majors are.
So currently, we're looking at over, I think it was 100, maybe 150, but looking at more coming in this new major here.
Senator Martell.
Do you see your club going to any conferences that specialize in, sports management?
Yes, so this past year, there was a conference at Nashville, where Nick Swim took us, hopefully it was introduced or anything like that, but it was a great introduction to the sport management field. But we're hoping with this club and the funds that we get, we can create more opportunities for that.
Any further questions? Senator Harvey.
Do you know how long sports management has been offered as a major here?
I believe it was first introduced my freshman year, so 2021.
Any further questions? Seeing none, what is the committee's recommendation?
400 ought to pass.
Vice President Peterson.
I move to accept the committee's recommendations.
Second.
If that's the percent, that's adopted. We'll move into a period for discussion. Vice President Over.
This club came in very prepared, all of their paperwork was done, they have. Met with I met with them and their advisor, and they are just very helpful, so I didn't know from their presentation today.
Any other points for discussion? Seeing none, debate. Senator Crop.
I think this club has some of the most potential to grow. Considering they're very focusing on everyone involved and it's very career oriented, so definitely favored.
Any further points for debate? Representative Guzman.
Yeah, next one is my goal. He's to go to the business school faculty. I had him actually on my radio show, and he talked a little bit about the sports management major, and I see a lot of potential and a lot of growth happening within the organization and this major as a whole.
Any new points of debate? We're gonna, Senator Stewart.
I think this new club will personally bring in a lot of interest. This is really the first time there's been any sports related at business school, as far as I believe. So I think this club will be in a lot of interest, we'll see a lot of participation and everything will go very well.
Any further points for debate? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? Seeing a clear majority in the affirmative, that passes. Presenting, you feel free to stay or go, totally up to you. We will now move into executive reports, starting with the president.
Good evening, everyone. Second to last meeting of the semester, not too much of a report tonight. Other than that, hiring has been completed. And if you were at the inauguration, you heard about all of the different people that will be taking all of the different executive roles for next year. So congratulations to those people. Just kind of rounding out the semester, a few things that we'll be talking about tonight that came from me and a few other execs from the staff and did. End of report.
I thought you were gonna go longer.
Short one.
Hold on. I used $150 of my executive fund to buy one $100 and two $25 gift cards to the bookstore as an incentive to take the survey, which we are preparing, me and President Delors are preparing. As soon as that's put into Qualtrics, we'll be releasing that as soon as possible. I know that our original plan was Sunday, but things don't always go according to plan. And then we'll be having, hopefully Advisor Sidalco help us get that out to the student body. Next, myself, President Delors and BOT rep, will be meeting with the administration tomorrow. We're preparing for that meeting. I will also be discussing my town hall initiative that I was talking about with them, so we can get that kind of the foundation for that started. On Friday, I have a meeting with Tom Pico, the president of the Alumni Association. It will be kind of an orientation meeting for myself, stepping into my role as president of this organization. They also sit, the president of UMSG sits as an ex officio member of the Alumni Association. So I will be meeting with him to learn a bit about what that role will entail. And I can help bridge the gap between our two organizations in that role. Last, I'm wrapping up just general things. Next week, as we've already stated, is our last meeting of the year. I look forward to the well-deserved break that we all will get for those who are returning. And once again, thank you to all of you who will not be returning, but we'll get to that our next meeting, I'm sure. And our next, our next guest speaker will be none other than outgoing at that time, President Delors. So be sure to bring your tissues. End of my report. We will move on to Vice President for Financial Affairs.
Hi, everyone. This week I mainly focused on creating the new BPFA. Additionally, I'm doing some more work on the annual budget, another chair meeting next week, and setting up the student roundtable, CFO and CBO Kelly Sparks, in addition to my normal EBC work. Starting projected unallocated tonight, we have $99,526. Return to unallocated from CALSA, the amount of $266.55. Excuse me. We had two tabled requests, one from Outing Club in the amount of $18,654. And the other from UMSG because Vice President Tripp was unfortunately feeling unwell last night, and that will come next week. And then one item under the consent agenda, Outing Club is requesting additional money for their storage facility to store their gear. End of report.
Excellent. We'll now move on to the Vice President for Student Organizations.
Hello, everyone. Some of you may know I was at Polypro this past Friday, so you'll be seeing me later on presenting a revision to the SORP, which is the Student Org Recognition Policies. So more on that later. I spent a majority of my week working with DOT Mills on making my buried lackluster database much cooler and much more innovative. You're welcome, Senator Rocky. For all of my representatives and community association boards, just like as a reminder, I don't do the onboarding for you guys because I don't know I'm not the president of all of your clubs. That's why you guys are much more qualified in that aspect. So if you're turning over from spring to fall, please do pass down that rep handbook and explain to them like just a little bit about like what you do. The next VPSO will handle like obviously, well, Senator Rock will handle the more Senate side of that, but just start training them, especially if you're gonna be gone for the summer and are like moving on. So yeah, please do that, because if you don't, then it will unfortunately fall to myself or our future VPSO, and we won't do as good of a job with orienting them in the club, so please do that. And yeah, more for me later, but for now, I'm good. End of report.
Vice President for Student Entertainment.
Hello, so the food trucks are as follows. Yum Bus, Falafel Mafia, Wild Cow Creamery, and Red Barn. We also were able to increase the amount of food they are bringing from 600 meals to 850. So that's good. End of report.
Moving on to the Vice President for Student Leadership.
3 p.m. tomorrow, DOC Carol and I will be doing the promos, like doing like pictures, videos for our Instagram for the campus cleanup next Monday. Please come get involved with that. I don't want to be the only one doing that. And just let one of us know if you want to get involved with that, or we're probably going to meet at the offices of that. Working on promoting the campus cleanup, and we're just reminded that we're collaborating with the Green Campus Initiative on that. It's next Monday from 12 to 2 at the Stewart Quad. Also working on promoting the collabs with Swell next week on Thursday from 12 to 4 in the Mind Spa. It's a paints and pill bottle event and also a finals week survival kits event. And then just working on kind of onboarding for the next VPSL and report.
Moving on to the Advisor for Student Government.
No report.
All right, do we have any questions for our speakers? Senator Waters.
VP Moore, how many food trucks was that?
4.
Senator Hardy.
This is for VP more, are they cheaper for students, or are they gonna be
Great.
Great.
They're
All is great, yeah.
Representative Khan. Can you tell us how you increased the meal amount?
So one more time, can you tell me how you like negotiated that to like increase the?
Yeah, so that's 4. It was going to be 5. It took so long. Someone stepped out. Young Bus said, hey, we can actually bring more because we're like used to doing a larger quantity. And we said, how much more can you bring? They said, whatever, 250 units, whatever. We said, yeah, do that.
Any questions for our executives? Going once and going twice. Moving on to periodic reports, starting with the Faculty Senate Student Representative.
No report.
All right, University of Maine Board of Trustees Student Rep.
Hello. For anyone who didn't see my message in the Senate space, I learned last week that they did not approve the student trustees in the governor's office when they were supposed to, which means that there are not going to be student trustees happening in July like they were supposed to be. Michael and I are in contact with the governor's office and the board and some additional people who care and were part of the legislation that meant that there would be student trustees to figure out how that happened and why that happened. And I don't have answers yet, so I apologize, but I'm working on that. And also it will be brought up at the senior administration meeting tomorrow that we mentioned. On another note, I was looking through the board policies and bylaws to try and figure out answers to that question and learned that student reps can participate in meetings in addition to ASA, which I guess hasn't been done before. I think maybe people just didn't know. So me and a few other reps are looking at what kind of presentation we could do, probably at FFT. And I'm working on reaching out to the chair of FFT to figure that out. And then my office hours will be on Thursday from 1 to 2. And report.
Moving on to the chair of the Fair Election Practices Commission.
inauguration, onboarding stuff, starting soon. Also still conducting many little
peek into election practices of student orgs. That's all I have to report.
Excellent. Student legal representative.
Sean is finalizing contracts for end of year events, starting with the food trucks. And we're also doing some fun little advertising. We're mailing flyers into the first year dorms, so, yeah. And
Perfect. All right, representative to the Graduate Student Senate, does anybody have that report? Seeing none. Orono Town Council liaison.
Okay, it's gonna be extra short. Last week I attended the third meeting of the Orono Town Manager Search Committee. This week, the last meeting, we reviewed its off-site interviews. Overall, I feel like there is a good lineup of people who might be the next Orono Town.
Excellent. Moving on to the Old Town City Council liaison.
No, or
All right. Representative of Military and Veteran Affairs.
So, unfortunately, the meeting that was supposed to be last week, what had to be canceled, we're gonna be rescheduled for next semester. This weekend, April 20th, is going to be the Zimmerman Fitness Challenge. It's gonna be hosted by the Navy ROTC on campus, and this challenge includes mud crawls and pack runs. It's a really exciting time. But it's important to remember that this was created in honor of the First Lieutenant James R. Zimmerman, a Naval Reserve officer, here for a training corps who went to Maine, died in 2010 in Afghanistan, and this was created in his honor. All funds of this event goes to an NROTC award. And so it's important if, like, you guys want to go out and support the cause and, go with the challenge. It's kind of difficult, but it's for a good cause. I have everything set up for this Memorial Day. I'll be assisting the town sexton and the fire department, for the flag retirement and retrieval ceremonies, but again, I'm not gonna be asking assistance this year on it because it's gonna be outside of the academic calendar year, and I don't think that's fair for people to ask them to do that. The end of the report.
Director of Communications, is that that report?
It was just to come help out at the promo tomorrow and come help out at the actual volunteer event next week. And the t-shirts are ordered and on their way.
Director of Technology.
Let's see, so this past week, working with VPSO over to get her database all up and running. You're also welcome, future VPSO Rocky. So that should be all set. I plan to just make little minor updates if there's anything else I can do for, and just generally wrap up the final stuff with just site updates, get it ready for the summer, because if any of you have requests over the summer, I will just be MIA, so. Not that I expect anyone to, but I'm just gonna make it look good for you there. So that's it, end of report.
Perfect. University of Maine Security Report. Does anybody have that report? Seeing none. Center for the Undergraduate Research Liaison.
I'll give the report on the symposium in the committee section, so no report.
Perfect. Are there any questions for our speakers? Going once, going twice. Moving on to reports of standing committees, starting with marketing and public relations. I'm assuming no report. Because I don't know why there are two reports for that. Membership. No report. All right, policy and procedure.
Polyprom met last Friday to discuss and pass resolutions regarding pay to play for club sports, preliminary recognition for student organizations, and the FEPC's executive election timetable. Please let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or ideas for Polypro for them to take up next semester.
Political activism.
So over this weekend, we were at College of the Press. We were visited by the Scott County Democratic Committee. There was about 30 people there. We had bagels. They passed a motion to cut us a check for $160. So thank you to them. The other clubs have no report. So no report.
All right, services.
Maybe kind of a longer report because I met with auxiliary services today. So these are some of the important topics we touched on. First, mentioned equitable access. So we talked about how on Main Street, there would be a pop-up for equitable access with a link to the FAQ page. All students will be getting mail during the summer about equitable access, which will tell them about the program and how to opt out and all that information. While they cannot require professors to do things, the bookstore has contacted faculty service, faculty Senate, requesting professors to open up courses early. This way, students engage if they want to opt in or out of equitable access. Most professors seem to open to it. Once you are opted in, which everyone is by default, you will receive a detailed email on how the program works and how to opt out. It also has information how to contact the bookstore. They are also looking to add equitable access training to the RA training schedule. Cable. Cable and dorms will be phased out and replaced with streaming in all halls, long-term project. Halls. Hancock will be getting 16 single-use bathroom instructions, as we know, that starts next week. And then parking services is trying to improve relationships with students since they are known as ticketing people. One of the things they're proposing is potentially collaborating with UMPD in the fall to do a free car trip for students, so like checking into the cars, like taking them to go home for fall break. And looking to modernize parking patches. They did not like follow up, like expand upon that, but that's what they said. I was told to remind the Senate that Northern Light Health outlet on campus stays open during the summer. The repairs to poles on campus coming soon. Slash, they are looking to contact Pepsi to fix the broken vending machines on campus. End of report.
Great, do we have any questions for our speakers? Senator Rocky.
Senator Bishop, I heard that there's like some halls that perhaps voting against our grant passed for degree. Is that true?
I did not say anything about that, and I don't think that's true from what I know.
Right, Senator Brown.
Another one, so what does it mean exactly for cable and streaming, like, each dorm, like, is it like a living area thing, or?
Well, every dorm right now has cable, and there's 2 halls with streaming, so they're planning to get rid of cable for all the halls because not many people use cable and replace them all with streaming.
Can I ask, what, you mean like, what's just like Netflix?
It would be like cable, but like, like, feel like live, like you ever like have like smart TVs and it's like, oh, it's like channeled like cable, but it's like streamed.
Or do you have sense on that?
That's what I'm saying.
I can help. It's an app, basically,
Yeah.
that will have free TV on it.
Senator Waters.
Residents will get free red passes next year. Yes.
Can I ask where you got that information?
Yeah.
The parking services website.
Yeah.
It was not parking service, Res Life. And when I was checking my housing, it was included. And I was like, yeah.
Information, all RAs got an email when it was talking about going into next year that all residents on campus. So yeah, it's Res Life, it's parking services, it's everything.
All right, any further questions for our speakers? What's going twice? We'll move on to reports of special committees, starting with academic affairs.
When do I move into the cool committee spot?
Oh, it should have been that, but
That's okay, I'm forgiving. Okay. I have my meeting with the associate provost tomorrow, so tonight is your last chance to send me a little email or text if you have any issue, big or small. The primary issues I'm bringing are trying to get the best point of contact for the degree progress report and stuff. Hitting home the online major minor change stuff, and then we're doing an when I go, I also ask like, what are you proud of that you want me to share? And then they share what they're proud of that they want me to share, so then I get to bring next week what they're proud of to share. And the report.
undergraduate student symposium committee.
Hello, everyone. I feel that the symposium last Friday was a success. I want to give a special thanks to Senator Rocky, Senator Ricker for their help in manning the area and interacting with the undergraduate student body over the course of the day. Also, a special thanks to President Ward for representing UMSG and announcing the undergraduate winners during the awards ceremony. Many of the undergraduates who came by the area gave input, positive, and with future steps for improvement. There was an overall appreciation of our presence there and the food and water that we provided. But for future years, it was suggested to offer coffee in addition to just water and a wider variety of sandwiches. Also, plates instead of just napkins would be appreciated. New attendees and presenters said that the experience was a lot and a bit overwhelming, but not necessarily in a bad way. And previous years' attendees said that this year was better than last year. And because all the posters were in one room and not spread out, it made it accessibility easier, but the room was also very loud and that it could be hard to hear the presenter that you were trying to listen to when you were 2 feet away from them. The space between posters was also mentioned to be a little cramped. So I'll work with Cougar and their committee and attend their debriefs and review survey comments that come in the coming weeks and create plans for possible enrollment next year in their report.
Food and Dining Affairs Committee. All right. Any questions for our speakers? Vice President Peterson.
Question for Senator Baum. What do you see as the next step for the special committee now that the symposium was concluded for this year?
I feel like we should keep the committee as a special committee, just to see if there's any more involvement from the student body for next year. This year, getting in touch with professors and advisors on research projects was difficult to get any extra like attendance other than like people really associated with student government. But I do feel like we were able to make a positive impact through the committee. So I want to keep it here and keep that impact going on in the future. But I also want to increase and see if we have ability to increase attendance and our average to the general student body.
Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to Representative Board reports, starting with commuter and non-traditional students.
No report.
Honors College.
All right, so I just found this out approximately an hour ago. So I had no report originally and now I do. So as of an hour ago, the midday meal pack out has about 57,000 meals, which is 263 boxes that we are packing next Tuesday. We also got a donation from the president's office, and if that money arrives in time, we're also going to have 19 more boxes, so that would be 56,819 meals. Actually, that's wrong. Hold on, I didn't do the math right. We'll ignore that. So that means that instead of the original numbers that we had of about 10 lines, we're doing 14 lines where we'll be packing meals. It's going to be about 2 hours. So we actually do need more volunteers. So I will in fact be emailing you and the rest of all the women. So that'll be from 3:30 to 5 or about that. So that has been encouraged. We will have snacks and water. There's also t-shirts that are coming in hopefully by this week. And it's in the Memorial Gym in the field house area next week. So I hope whoever can volunteer, I would love to see everybody there. There will also be music. We make it a festivity. Other than that, the Honors College is doing a study session. SAB is doing a study session. I don't know about the Honors College Day, but I believe it's a picnic out on Escobar Lawn. SAB is doing a study session on the 28th of April, which is the last Sunday of the semester, technically the first Sunday of finals week. And that is the end of the board.
Moving on to the Interfraternity Council.
All right, so Lambda Chi Alpha's calendar case is finally concluded and they have been sanctioned a 2-year suspension. But on a brighter note, Beta Theta Pi had their rape response sleep out, and Delta Tau Delta had a car wash with Pi Beta Phi for JDRF and Read Lead Achieve, and they were both pretty successful philanthropy events. Alpha Sig has rescheduled their concert benefiting their philanthropy partner, Stop Hazing, to this Friday at 5 p.m. There's going to be food, live music, raffles, and a silent auction. So check that out if you're not doing anything on Friday night. Greek Week was a success with all 4 of our events generating great turnouts. So that was good. We also plan on tabling alongside Panhandle at Accepted Students Day this Saturday at the CCA. A couple weeks ago at the Accepted Students Day, we gauged a lot of interest. So we're hoping for even more this weekend. And also Beta Theta Pi is having is collaborating with Alpha Phi to host a carnival philanthropy event on the mall this Sunday from 3 to 7, benefiting this. They'll also have food and games and raffles and report.
Perfect. We'll move on to the Panhellenic Council.
Like Jacob said, we had a really successful Greek week with a lot of participation. And last Senate meeting, I said we were picking a new VP of Finance, which we finally did. So now I have a full board. And our recruitment rules passed, which is fun. And then AOPI is having a philanthropy event with Theta Chi on the mall on April 19th at noon. And you can donate to throw a pie at a brother or a sister. And then Chi Omega has their philanthropy week coming up with a car wash, waffles for wishes, and an event at Marg's.
Moving on to the Senior Class Council.
Next week is senior week, so on Monday, it's our movie day at Black Bear Cinemas. You can either go see Shrek 2 or Ghostbusters starting at 7. Tuesday is our cap decorating event in the Walker Room from 8 to 4:30. Wednesday is our cornhole tournament at Arno Brewing Company at 5. We're asking for a $5 donation, but not necessary. Thursday is our bar crawl and arcade night. The arcade is 4 to 9. Bar crawl starts at Margaritas, to receive your wristband around 7:15-ish. And then Friday is jumping into graduation at the Arno Trampoline Park from 2 to 4. And there are 18 days until graduation. Under report.
The Student Athletic Advisory.
Main event, 6 p.m. Thursday night, gonna look dapper and report.
Perfect. All right. Are there any questions for our speakers? Going once, going twice. Moving on to community association, starting with the Student Heritage Alliance Council.
Yeah, so updates on the multicultural forum. There's a lot of miscommunication and a lot of issues happening at the moment that my exec board and I are trying to figure out. So I'm gonna ignore you, Michael, VPSO over. I will get back to you. And I will get back to VPFA Allen once we get that situated at tomorrow's meeting. Stacked meeting tomorrow. We're gonna talk about elections, talk about an advisor, we're gonna talk about a lot of things. And so I encourage the presidents in a very nice email to please attend. So I'm recruiting the Avengers of the multicultural groups to be at the table tomorrow. And yeah, I guess the final thing is that I actually finalized this about an hour ago. So we're partnering with Mainly Succulents next semester to do a social event at the end of every month. That will be, guess what? Free 99. So that'll be nice to partner with Mainly Succulents. So look out for that next semester. So that'll be fun. And important.
Perfect. I'm gonna throw it to your question if you still want to ask it.
Just some of the topic, what is Thursday? Main event award show for athletes.
Okay. Alright, awesome. Moving on to Wildstein.
Hi, everyone. We're in the middle of our elections right now. We're still in nomination period. Currently, nominations are literally everyone who currently has a position running again for the same position next year, which I'm totally fine with that working out, if no one else wants to run for a position. And our voting begins on Friday at our meeting. The only other thing I have is that in the bio for our Instagram, there's still a link to sign up to get a rainbow cord to wear at graduation. If you know anyone who's graduating and identifies as LGBTQ+, you can sign up to attend lavender graduation on April 27th from 3 to 5 p.m. in the Cove Room, or quite literally to just get a rainbow cord, still read your name at, or whoever's name graduation. You don't have to show up if you have something that day. Just we want to make sure that people get the chance to represent themselves at graduation. So yeah, the link to that is in the bio of our Instagram and also linked in the campus groups event. End of report.
Moving on to the International Student Association.
All right, hey guys, so just go over like some things that had happened a couple weeks ago, because I was just a little bit indisposed. So a couple weeks ago, Last week, we had our grad dinner, a lot of people turned out, a lot had fun, there was recognition, and a lot of just support of whether who was graduating, either for being here for one semester or full 4 years. Last Friday, Cambodia and Pakistan had their country presentations. They talked about, their food culture, had a little bit of games. It was fun as always. And the final piece, onto more recent news was the IC elections. A couple weeks back, we had our election on Friday, April 5th. Due to technical issues, we didn't find out until Tuesday, April 9th. So we had the election results as follows, our treasurer, Sahara Rahman, our secretary, Yonjun Choi, our vice president, Sharifullah Abed, and president, Haidar Donabayev. So yeah, on to stuff happening into the future. We are having Springfest on the Main Mall from 1 to around 4. Get excited, it's a lot of fun. There's gonna be henna, there's gonna be food, there's gonna be music, might be some dancing. So yeah. And report.
Perfect. All right. Are there any questions for our speakers? Going once, going twice. If the Senate will now enter Chairman Olson.
I rescind my asking any question.
Okay, so perfect. If it's the pleasure of the Senate, we will now enter our 5-minute recess, coming back at 7.
Yeah.
Snacks.
All right, if you're near a door that's open, I'd appreciate it. I am now looking for approval of the consent agenda, Vice President Peterson.
I move to approve the consent.
Second. If that's the pleasure of the Senate, that's adopted. We'll now move into new business, starting with 45 SPOL 84, an act to revise the financial policies.
Excuse me, Charlie, are you pulling it up on the screen?
Yeah, there are printed copies.
Oh, there are?
Marty wanted to stick to that, and I've always stayed to that.
Doesn't matter to me. Are they there? You don't get the vote.
I guess that's.
It's okay. Good?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So. Pay to play. So this is something that I noticed and EBC noticed, sort of like an inequity in between a couple of the club sports on our campus that have to pay, to use facilities, whether that be on UMass campus or off. And usually this is due, to the inherent like nature of their sport. And or you may not have a place for them to practice, like the racket sports, there's no like indoor tennis court when it's full. So earlier this year, I invited the clubs that were affected, which is 6 out of 33, to come and ask for funding for like funding outside the tier system, for pay to play essentially. And tennis, figure skating, and men's ice hockey were all approved. They were the only ones that requested funding, for the additional funding process. So a couple weeks before the annual budget, or at the beginning of the spring semester, I did a quick like survey with the Senate, and I said, would we be open, to entertaining these sorts of requests separate from the tier system, because the tier system is meant for costs like, we saw the budget, vans, lodging, rentals, I believe I said quite a few times. So we were all here at the annual budget, hopefully, and EBC and the General Student Senate made the decision to approve student funding, to table game funding, because we wanted to sort of know what we're comfortable with and have a conversation about what we wanted to put into place as a policy.
like affecting these groups from here forward. So looking at the actual resolution, active financial provides the financial policies, whereas some campus recreation sports clubs must be paid to play at university or external facilities due to the nature of their sports and winter weather. Whereas this is an inequity among sports clubs who must pay to use facilities with UMSG tier funding. For example, my sport, field hockey, we don't have to pay to use any of the facilities, and that money isn't sort of, that money, we don't have to like fundraise and volunteer for that process. Okay, so the thing that I am looking to add is under add. And it says, right here, in front of them, some club sports, in parentheses, alpine ski, figure skating, men's ice hockey, women's ice hockey, pickleball, and tennis must pay to use facilities for practices and games. In the past, much of these clubs' tier budgets have gone to pay for facilities, while other clubs' budgets went to travel, lodging, band rentals, and equipment, in my own mind. Recognizing the inequities of paying to play within the tier system, blah, 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 shall consider special educations for pay-to-play funding, including practices, events, and/or special events. That came up with figure skating. These requests shall be considered only after written approval from campus recreation and the BPFA. Additionally, a maximum of 75% of each club's need for facilities shall be considered by EBC and the GSS. And then just to talk a little bit about how I sort of arrived at that level. I surveyed EDC, I asked everyone to put their recommendations into a document. Around half of the members of EBC put their recommendations into the document. And then I sort of devised a policy that tried to meet like a middle ground. Some people wanted to fund pay to play entirely, some people wanted to do less. So I thought that 75% of each club's need, similar to the way that it's written in the financial policies about like a cap for flights, we can only pay $250 per flight per ticket, like that same sort of hard stop. And I also thought that 75% doing a percentage was a little bit more fair because it doesn't necessarily dictate how much clubs are practicing because, you know, clubs have their own unique needs and some clubs aren't as necessarily active as others. And then the written approval from campus recreation and the BPFA was a recommendation by Senator Bohm. And I thought that was a really great idea because we don't, you know, necessarily, I don't think that an abuse of this would happen, but it's important to have those sort of like checks and balances that exist in other places in student government. And then I will apply broad fast. Okay.
All right, do we have questions for our presenter, Senator Kemper?
So would this include any potential of sports that like don't exist right now, but would potentially get activated in the future that would need this? Because it has a list of the sports that we currently fund.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the way that it's written, it could be interpreted, if like you get written approval from the campus rec and the BPFA that you could request. But honestly, if you wanted to make it like less ambiguous, striking the clubs would be fine. I just wanted to provide like a baseline, but that would be like in past annual budgets too. So.
I would just to kind of add to that, I would say that looking at it in terms of like the way it doesn't, I think it's more so examples than it is anything concrete. So I would say it would cover any club sport, but again, striking it is not optional.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Could you expand upon like break clubs? Because 75% of that, but what exactly is the clubs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I define club's need, or like in my mind, a club's need is the totality of the funding that they need, for practices, games, whatever. But like, I didn't wanna write it, so it was 75% of whatever they're requesting. Because hypothetically, they could request like over what they needed so that they could get the whole thing covered. So that written approval piece I think is important, so Campus Rec and the VPFA can guarantee that we're, like hypothetically, we would be only covering 75% of like the club's total use of pay to play facilities. Does that answer your question? Somewhat, yeah.
Any further questions for the speaker, Senator Bell?
Is there any reason why we wanted to move away from like a hard value limit or a kind of?
Yeah, so that's also a good question. I think UBC especially saw that while clubs like use the same facilities, they're not necessarily like they're not all the same level of active. So for example, you have like men's and women's ice hockey. Men's ice hockey has more practices, they have more members, they travel more, they're in a more competitive league. And doing like. So first I'll address the like hard cap of funding. Doing a hard cap of funding would, I think, be a little bit unfair to clubs who want to practice more and then also give clubs who practice less like a greater percentage of their pay to play funding being covered, you know, at the outset. And then to talk about like a dollar amount, I also noticed, and like UBC and the GSS also noticed that like all of these sports cost vastly different amounts for like facilities. Like we were talking about tennis, and VP Ober, because she played tennis, made the point that the tennis club has a really great relationship with the place that they practice at, and their pay to play request is very, very cheap, both for the nature of their sport and compared to something like ice hockey, where it's inherently more expensive to like operate ice. So I thought that 75% sort of like covered both like potential inequities in hours and in like a set dollar amount.
Great. Senator Bell?
One final question. I know a lot of the EDC members, or at least a couple of them, have mentioned tying it to the tier system. Is there any reason why you didn't move to this tier system?
Yeah, this is like a little bit more of my opinion, so obviously the student senate can amend or do with the resolution as they please. But I don't think that club sports who are affected by pay to play should have to align their fundraising and volunteering to like the needs of the tier system. So I don't like, in a shorter sentence, that makes more sense. I don't think that club sports should have to volunteer and fundraise to pay the university, or like other facilities to use their space. And while it's not like directly like, you know, I'll volunteer this many hours to get the pay to play funding, I think that pay to play funding should be considered separately from the tier system, because I don't think you should have to volunteer and fundraise to just be able to practice, where the majority of sports don't have to do that.
Any further questions for our speaker? Seeing none, what is the committee's recommendation?
2-0, absent.
Senator Markov?
And we can set the committee.
Second.
If that's the Senate, that's adopted. We'll move into a period for discussion. Debate. Senator Bell?
Okay. So at the beginning of the year, when it was proposed to increase the budgets for how much we give club sports, I was against that. I feel that we fund club sports way more than we should have, and this is the second like motion that's coming through to increase their funding in this year. We noticed that if you look at the budget, it's been about $30,000 that we've increased their funding for. Because of that, we've seen that we've had to come back in other places, such as student entertainment. We've had to cut one of the proposed like main event concert activities that they asked for because we increased their funding so much. I feel like this gives too much wiggle room for like just 75% of what they need. Club hockey, I think if you could correct me if I'm wrong, but they asked for like $12,000. For pay to play, $8,000 for pay to play. Okay, but still 75% of that is like other clubs on campus. That's
like 50 different office budgets that we could give to a club to get their information out there, or that's just like a tier up in performance that we can have from a main event performer. And so I'm actually against this resolution, and if we do, I feel like we should give it a hard cap, just so that we don't find ourselves in a hole where we're like, okay, this is like too much money, but it says that we can.
Senator Waters.
I voted for this in polygraph. I was originally skeptical of the 75% part because I'm on the exact opposite end of the spectrum where I was like, why don't we just fund the whole thing? It's not their fault that they're charged a really large amount from our university. I thought the 75% was a good compromise between not funding it. I think it's important that we fund this. The 75% is also plays into the part that this is based in equity. So the 75% makes it so that each club kind of gets the same of what they need from each other, which is exactly what BPFA said, that like if tennis club needs, and these are fake numbers, like 2,000 to practice versus ice hockey that needs 8,000 to practice, one club isn't getting all of their funding and another club is only getting a quarter of their funding. For pay to play. I also like that this includes games. That's what I was brought up during the budget meeting, is that games needed to be included because club sports should host games that are awesome, wonderful university. So yeah, I'm in support of this. I voted for it in polygraph.
Senator Rocky.
Not to be overly pedantic, but I feel like it might be good to clarify that pay to play wouldn't, this past pay to play wouldn't be restricted to these clubs. So if people would be down, I move to amend the resolution to add EG or alpine ski.
Second.
If that's the pleasure of the Senate, that we will now move into a period for discussion on the amendment. Debate. Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? Seeing a clear majority, that passes. You said EG in front of Alpine State?
Yeah, so just like for example, these clubs.
Perfect. Let's have that. All right, we are back in debate for the whole resolution. Be over.
I will say I generally am opposed to the pay to play policies, for a host of reasons. But I do see that we have started funding pay to play. And we have made promises that we are funding pay to play to certain people, or at least that's kind of been the general consensus of this body. And therefore we need policies, so we're not just kind of doing so willy-nilly, you know? And so even though like I'm typically against pay to play because I do think we overfund our club sports, there does need, if we're going to do that, in the consensus of the body, there needs to be some serious policy. And this is policy that I support for a thing I don't generally support. So do with that what you will.
Representative Guzman.
Instead of directing a question towards the BPFA, can I direct the question towards the senator? Is that fine? Like for debate?
Josh, I want to hear what, so if you're opposed to this amendment entirely, right? If you were not opposed, how would you write this amendment?
I actually had a recommendation that I gave. It read as follows. I said pay to play should be a hard cap of total dollar amount that is able to be used by clubs to fund facilities for use towards games and towards practices that would be considered on home turf. Total amount should be tied to the tier the club is part of. I said this because we found that a couple of the clubs dropped down tiers, they did less fundraising, they did less volunteering, just because they didn't end up needing the funds, so they could get it through pay to play. And I said that it should be tied to the tier system and the tier of the club. My recommendation was that tier 1 could be given a maximum of 5,000, tier 2, 2,500, and tier 3, 1,000. In order for a club to be considered for pay to play, and this was included, they must have a letter from Dale or whoever holds his position at like Rec Sports or Club Sports, and from the sitting BPFA. And only after they have the approval of both can they come and ask for additional funding for pay to play from ABC.
Senator Thompson.
I have like two concerns. I understand the thought process behind not tying it to tier system. But I think we're undermining the tier system by not tying it in. Because like Senator Bowen said, we're seeing clubs drop down in their fundraising efforts while still asking for even more money than their tier system gives them. So clearly they need the money, they're just not moving forward through the tier system, which means they have to put in their own effort to raise money. I also don't love including special events. The example we talked about was ice skating, where it was a show they were making money off of, and I think events like these should be made as like separate budget requests.
Vice President Allen.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate all the sentiments like shared by senators. I do want to point out that club sports make up over a quarter of the clubs that we have recognized on campus. So it's not like a super small percentage of our clubs, and also pay to play would only affect approximately 6 clubs. So it's not a huge like hit, I guess I wanted to say. And then I also wanted to just like provide some clarity on the tier system as well. I really think that student government has the ability to sort of step in and provide funding for events, activities, practices, whatever, that students would have to pay for out of their own pocket. And pay to play, I think, is a really great example of that. And I don't think that we should be requiring club sports to put in their own fundraising dollars to like tied to just paying the university for facilities. I think we should, as a student government, like there's a responsibility to sort of like do that for students. And also, I don't know if anyone remembers, but when club hockey was talking about their annual budget, like pay to play sort of request, they mentioned that pay to play is directly affecting how they're going to be charging dues for members. And if we weren't going to fund like the games for hockey, their dues would increase by the amount of sort of like what we were willing to fund. So not sort of like approving this policy, which I do think is a middle ground, harms students in paying dues.
Right, Senator Kemper.
I move to limit further discussion to 10 minutes.
Second. All right, if that's the pleasure of the Senate, we'll enter a discussion on the limitation. Debate. Yeah, Senator Bell.
I feel like this is a pretty big, like, change. This could change the entire way in which we fund club sports in the future, so I feel like we should limit discussion.
Any further debate? Seeing none, Senator.
Agree with Senator Bowles' views.
Right, any further debate? Any new debate?
I disagree with both of them.
I think that time will keep from the rambling back and forth thing that we tend to get into sometimes that goes on for.
Perhaps. Senator Bell.
I agree with them.
Representative Merchant.
This is 10 seconds. Just, this is a complicated thing. I think 10 minutes won't do it justice. We want to bump it up to 20, that's fine, but rambling is not good. But also, this is something that, again, I mentioned the EBC. If we're gonna do this, we should do this right. That's all I was.
Perfect. Accepting no more debate on this topic. All those in favor? You don't get to vote. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right, all those opposed? All right, I'm gonna start the timer for 10 minutes, so who wants to go next? Senator Harvey.
I think that this is a good middle ground, just like Vice President Allen said, and then I also agree with Senator Waters, because I voted on this and policy and procedures. I think that percent cap is much more suitable for club funding rather than like an actual hard cap on cash, because some clubs are gonna take more money than others and others won't. And I think like there's a big debate on sports clubs getting the most funding. I think it kind of makes sense that sports clubs would get the most funding because gear is expensive for sports, practicing facilities are expensive, going to games is expensive, travel, all that kind of like total up makes it more expensive than the club would be. And I'm in favor of this amendment that we have right now.
Vice President Hilberg.
I think when you are joining a sports club or joining any of these like, and Greek life representatives, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you kind of are opting into this, group that you know you have to pay a lot of money to be a part of. And it is unfortunate, but at some point I kind of see student government's like role as, you know, lobbying the administration to make these, make the, the practice times cheaper or kind of much better deal for students, rather than fund that. This is also the issue with, I believe, Senator Ricker kind of looked into cutting down club dues or paying club dues, and we weren't really allowed to do that. This is like a loophole to that, but I do think that that's not really our purpose as a student government to pay for things to be cheaper for students, but to rather to lobby the university for things to be cheaper for students. And then we can help them on special events after that fact. Like I said, like we don't really help Greek life with their dues or anything like that. And as a member of Greek life, I know that. And yeah, that's all I got.
Senator Rock.
Point of information, speaker. Do you have like an estimate of what the hit would be, should all 6 of these clubs be funded to 75-70?
Yeah, it would be less expensive than when we did the annual budget. Because we probably did like 90%. So I can pull up the annual budget if someone wants to ask another question.
Great. Representative Blake.
I think everyone's glossing over the fact that it says a maximum, that this is a cap. And if we see a situation like to Senator Bowen's point, I see the concern and I can see that, but I think this, having it as a cap gives EBC the possibility, if they see that a club is deliberately fundraising less, doing less because of this, that they can simply, by those standards, decide to fund them less if they feel that the request is unreasonable.
Senator Martin.
This is a question, a point of information to the general student body. Has there been any sign that the university is moving towards funding clubs, sports clubs in particular, like for these like this?
Funding them?
You know, like
You mean like lessening the cost?
Yes.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know that club sports do use the Alphon for a discounted rate. I'm not sure how deep of a discount that is. I don't believe it's a very deep discount. And then the only people that we have currently entertained funding requests for pay to play that are on campus is the Alphon. The rest of them are off campus because the university doesn't have a facility like indoor tennis courts. And then answer for Senator Rocky, in the annual budget, $24,670 is approved. And I would guesstimate around like 19 or 18,000 would be the cap for 75%.
Let's throw it to President DeLoche.
I've actually noticed in a lot of my conversations around club sports, like being in EBC for the past 3 years, that I think this is my opinion, I think the university has actually become less sympathetic to supporting sports clubs and rec sports on campus. They're going to start charging $16 an hour for clubs or for murals to use the new dome that they built because they need to staff it. While the discounted rate for ice time is one thing, I've actually seen that they've become less supportive of club sports and anyone other than Division I athletics using their facilities, especially since their facilities are brand new. There are a lot of good things that they do, but I think that's a fair answer to that question.
Vice President Chaplin.
I just have a question. If the idea is to make it so like the clubs don't have to use fundraising dollars to pay for the any of the university services, where are they gonna get that other 25% from? Where are we expecting that to come from?
Yeah, so just to clarify a little bit, you have to fundraise and do volunteer hours to be a part of the tier system. And that like sort of, as long as you go to all the meetings and things, equates to tier funding from student government. So it isn't really like directly impacted that if we approve pay to play funding, fundraising will automatically decrease, but club sports are still expected to fundraise for like meeting their own tiers. And all of these club sports that we would be entertaining for pay to play have like unique needs as club sports as well. And they all submitted tier budgets this year for van rentals, like travel and things like that.
Senator Ball.
Echoing what President George said, I actually worry that the university will see what we do here and they will start like in the future charging facility fees for like all access to all of their like facilities. I feel like it won't just be these 6 clubs. In the future, if we do this, they'll see that we've opened the door, we've given them the inch, they'll take the mile, and then they'll make it so that every single club has to pay to use their facilities. In which case we'll find ourselves sitting in a position where we're gonna be out like $30,000 just paying for facility fees that we hadn't in the past.
Chairman Olson.
Question for advisors at Alga. Where do you see the university taking like those fees? If this policy were to go into effect, would this create a change in your experience in how the university views funding for facilities and clubs?
I would hope not. But I think that it's a fair point to bring up. I think that there needs to be an overhaul of all of this because given the amount of space and time that feels that both club sports and intramurals need, we're not getting sufficient usage. So I think it's a big picture and a small picture. I mean, this is addressing some of the small picture immediate needs, but a big picture overhaul needs to take place.
I'm gonna just point of privilege that just in general to add to this discussion, addressing this cross-charging thing is absolutely on the top of my priorities moving into next year, just so we're aware. Senator Kemper.
Point of information, would this technically cover tier 4 and 5 units better?
It does have pickleball written in it, which is not currently a tier 1 through 3 sport. Honestly, I hadn't thought too much about that. I think the way that it's written, it could cover tiers 4 and 5, but also it would be up to the EDC to like expand the clubs that are affected.
Senator Waters.
I think it's really funny to think that anyone in the university besides board pays attention to what we do. Because I think we have a lot better life on campus if they paid attention to students. So I don't think they'll see this, first off, generally. But I also think that if that does happen, then we get a new job as a student government to advocate against that, talk to the right people, because we have resources and advocating skills that those club sports don't have on their own. And then we get a new fight and that'll be fine. That'll be okay. And then EBC can also just not fund. It doesn't say that EBC has to fund. It says maximum 75%, so they have full discretion.
Rocky.
Point of information for anybody who knows, I'm not super familiar with club sports. I imagine some are like really competitive, like men's ice hockey. Do these clubs have cuts, or can anyone who's willing to pay the fee join and participate?
They have cuts, but usually they have like a practice team.
Okay.
Some of them have cuts, no.
Whether this passes or not, I think it might not be a bad idea to commission a group of people to study this so that we actually know what the actual dollar amount that we spend in all of these things are and what we're looking at for time and facilities next year.
Any further debate? 1 minute on the clock. Are you sure? Going once, going twice, seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? Seeing a clear majority in the affirmative, that passes. So was it 2/3 needed? I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've exceeded that. Yeah, we've exceeded it. We're good. We're good. All right. We're now moving on to 45 SPL 85, an act to revise the student organization recognition policy. Yes.
Hello, everyone.
We started.
I'm just gonna put this out there, this needs a 2/3 majority to pass, just so we're all on the same page moving forward.
So did the last one, and it met it exactly. Perfect.
The student organization recognition policies are the guidelines that we all follow when it comes to student organizations, but specifically something that the DSO adheres to. There's probably a lot of changes that can be made, and I have some suggestions coming down the line for our next UPSO, but the one that I would like to change currently is Article 4, Section 2, subsection A. It currently reads, in order to remain active or become recognized, an organization must maintain a minimum of 10 active undergraduate members. So this is where we get that requirement that we meet in SOC and that we sometimes ask about here at Senate. That's really what we're like. One of our like big 3 points to passing SOC is that you have to have 10 active undergraduate members. So we define that as 10 people who regularly show up to club meetings or events. But, something that I'm trying to do, for the, to like help out the student body, is to combine some of our recognition policy or like forms with, the Center for Student Involvement. And they have I have worked, it's taken all semester, because, I really want to draw that line between student government and the university. That was the point brought up in Polly Brown. I just wanted to make sure that we're all well aware. I will go to bat for student government any day. But that's why it's taken all semester is because, I got to actually design the preliminary recognition form with the Center for Student Involvement. And so everything is up to what I believe would be student standards. Basically, the compromise that we're making here is that the Center for Student Involvement on preliminary recognition only requires 5 members, but they only have a 1-step recognition process and we have a 2-step. So to become recognized with the Center for Student Involvement, you only need 5. So this is changing our preliminary requirement to only be 5 undergraduate members. I don't see that as a problem for us because it's not. When you're preliminarily recognized, you can't access funding. The only thing you can really access is our advertising and our newsletter or weekly, update situation. Which I feel fine about because all we're doing is helping clubs advertise and get more members to reach our goal of 10 members. And so that's really all this is changing. The resolves, the student organization recognition policies, Article 4, Section 2, subsection A. Shall now read preliminary recognition requires organizations maintain a minimum of 5 active undergraduate members. In order to remain active or achieve final recognition, organization must maintain a minimum of 10 active undergraduate members. So this is kind of delineating in our guidelines between preliminary and final, also making it easier for clubs to engage in our process from the get-go. It's hard to have 10 very committed members when you don't really have any support from the university or student government right off the bat. So I think this will help us get some of those more clubs in general. But I'm open to questions.
Okay, do we have any questions for our speaker? Seeing none, what is the committee's recommendation?
2-0-0.
Senator Martel?
I move to accept the committee's recommendation.
Second.
If that's the Senate, that's adopted. We'll move into a period for discussion. Debate. Senator Ricker?
Yeah, I'm a massive proponent of extracurriculars on campus, and I think one of the most important things to do with this work is connecting students with different areas they like to explore further or areas that they may not know about. And I just think this is a great thing to pass in order to have students be more connected to what opportunities are on this campus.
Senator Stewart?
I agree with him, and I also think it will help make the people who feel underrepresented better off. It'll make them feel more comfortable approaching students that, help create a more positive environment.
Representative Levine?
I would only see good from this as somebody who is basically building a club from the ground up that had already existed and was under the recognition process of CSI and is currently going through the recognition process for student gov. This not only makes it a lot more feasible, but it also, I feel, in the long run, takes away the intimidation factor that can come with trying to scrape together 10 people that consistently go to a meeting, or however many would be considered regularly attending. It takes away the intimidation and it makes it a lot easier for not only them to interact with the student body, but for us to interact with the clubs that we are meant to be helping.
Any further debate, new debate? Senator Thompson?
New-ish, I just want to say that this doesn't really change anything on our side, but it makes like a big difference for clubs that are getting started.
Excellent. All right. Any further debate? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? Seeing a 2/3 majority, that passes. We'll now move into work by Bill A6, an act to revise the Fair Election Practices Commission guidelines. Do we have a speaker? All right.
Okay, this is patching one of the many holes in a very large tangled set of guidelines, but hopefully ensures that people get results before the spring, because as it reads, the scheduling of the executive election shall be conducted in a manner that ensures that voting concludes no later than 7 days before the commencement of spring break. That means the survey would end at least a week before spring break, which means you get results the week before spring break, and everything would be pushed a little bit further in advance. So closer to the start of the school year rather than towards the end. And this is important for getting results, just ensuring fluidity. Any? Yes.
Questions, Vice President Chapman?
So compared to this year, that it would kind of push the election forward. So does that make it harder to like advertise and get the word out about the opportunity for people to actually run for president and vice president and kind of make that decision in the second semester? Because I mean, even with it this late, we struggle to get people to run.
I don't think so. I think that's kind of up to the next meeting to be able to advertise it towards the beginning of the semester. I think it's more important that we're able to like have a fluid executive nomination and confirmation process. As important as it is to get people to run, I think that if we do like increased advertisement towards like earlier in the year, it will kind of balance out those two things. But it's just that's a good point. It's like something to keep in mind to make sure that we're advertising to give us why the student body involved in the election as possible. But this doesn't. It's only like a week before spring break, so it shouldn't really happen.
Right, Senator Ricker.
Out of curiosity, do you know how much spring break moves on a yearly basis? Is it like some week 6 or 7, or is it depend on the year, or how much fluidity is there in deciding them?
Really bad at months and dates, so if someone else could answer that, that would be helpful, but I don't know how much spring break moves. I just know that the school year moves with spring break, and thus it would move at the same time, but Lori might know.
St. Patrick's Day week, so right around March 17th every year.
Great. Senator Buzzell.
Was there a committee recommendation on this resolution?
Yes, that's just a typo.
Senator Bone.
What's the issue? Like, what's the problem? Why we need more fluidity?
The problem was that it would end on a Friday. The Friday is before spring break, if we were to, the way we did last time, and then there's all of spring break. We need to meet in person with Sean, through the FEBC chair, to confirm it with like a witness. And this was just kind of like a bubble this year. Like I just wanted to get it out, but I couldn't because I needed to meet with him in person, but I couldn't because I was on spring break. So whoever the next meeting is, they'll just be able to meet with him during the week, get it confirmed, get it notarized, and get it out to the public. Instead of having like this weird interperiod where it's not publicly conferred, but it is converted to blood.
Any further questions on this? Seeing none, what is the committee's recommendation?
That is supposed to say 200.
Senator Martel.
I need to accept the committee recommendation.
If that vote of the Senate, that's adopted. We'll move it to discussion. Vice President Goldberg.
Also, the week before spring break is typically midterms. That's it. Just putting it on.
Any further discussion? Debate. Senator Ricker.
Yeah, as a candidate who ran in this past executive election, a lot of students are kind of, they might leave campus on the Thursday, Friday, or they're just completely out of it and struggle with midterms. So I think having it the week before that week would be nice, having student engagement, stay involved in like on topic of campus. Like let's get tuned into academics and what's going on in student in the past week.
Great, Senator Martin.
Point of information. Am I allowed to ask another senator a direct question?
Sure.
Okay, Senator, Senator Fitz, how do you feel about this? Since you're gonna be in this position next year?
I'm in support of it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great, Representative Balea.
If I'm not mistaken, no one in student government gets paid during the week of spring break, and it makes zero sense to have one of the busiest times for the FEPC chair to be a time which they're not getting paid for. Correct me if I'm wrong about that.
Good point. Senator Bone.
I just don't really see a problem with just waiting 1 week, the FEPC here, chair. Can they not just do it the week that they get back? Is there any reason why they have to work over spring break?
People didn't like that this year, but they can explain that themselves.
Vice President Chapman.
I agree with Senator Bohm. I really don't think that there is any issue with waiting 9 days and finding out then. But also second, The only thing this does is force us to move our election timetable up a week. Right now, as the policy is written, if the FEPC chair planned it early enough and thought it through, we would have, you can put the timetable 2 weeks before spring break if they really want to with how our policies are written. So I don't really see a need for this. I think it just pigeonholes us and really forces us to be a little more strict with it.
Vice President Goldberg.
I would be in favor of this because I think that the problem is that then you have no bounds and therefore every year things take longer than expected and then we end up doing things last minute. And if we do this again, you end up campaigning during midterms week, which is awful for the candidates because they're trying to be students and campaign to the entire student body, as well as because right before spring break, you have students leaving Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And you're getting less engagement when we want to be getting more.
President Delores.
I echo everything that Vice President Ober just said because it was 90% of what I was gonna say. But this is the feedback that we got in the election this year. So this is the necessary change that we should be making. Also, to kind of answer a potential or maybe previously asked question about like the feasibility of moving the election timetable up a week to be closer to winter break. I think that's student government's job. And ultimately, Zoe, that's gonna be your job next year. But I think that that's something that student government can do. Start planning and advertising for the election in the fall semester so that students are aware that it's coming. Potential candidates are aware that they can run. And I don't think that with student government improving in work output next year, that we should be worried about not advertising and not meeting our goals because we have goals, we have continuity for next year. We know the people that are gonna be in the positions. Let's plan for the future and do this now. And this is the feedback that students wanted to see, the candidates wanted to see, so let's do it now.
Senator Harvey.
I wanted to ask you a direct question.
Sure.
Would you be able to like explore a state on this as a person who ran during that time and your experience with it?
I can. In fact, Robert's rules, I should have probably said at some point, is the vice president isn't allowed to give their opinion unless asked by a senator. So now that I get to give my opinion in this position, I am in full support of this. As somebody who ran this year, and I have a little bit of addition to this, as somebody who ran as an already executive member of this body, being both a student in midterms, an active vice president, and a candidate was hell. Was not fun. And I think that this not only allows more of a grace period in all regards, both for the students who are about to enter midterms week and at least can focus a little bit more on the election the week before midterms. It also allows candidates, whether they're in an executive position or not, a lot more of that free time because also it's a very, very busy time for student government. We're wrapping things up before spring break. So I think all of this is absolutely necessary. And to Vice President Chaplin's point about this pigeonholing us, I think that the only issue that we've had so far is a lack of planning and a lack of any sort of bounds to anything. And I think this gives it to us, especially while we go and continue to look into how we can change this. If this is something that we want to revisit again, we can. But until we do in any actual kind of comprehensive capacity, I think this is necessary. Senator Bone.
Just a question for President Delores. You mentioned this survey. Was this survey mainly for the people who voted, mainly for the candidates, for both? And what was the opinion stated by the constituency in which you represent?
The survey that Keegan and I, Vice President Tripp and I have been talking about isn't related to the election. It hasn't been released yet. It's just part of our spring survey that we do every year. So that's different. It doesn't ask any questions about that. This is just like the general feedback that I've heard, Chairman Olson talk about, that I've heard candidates talk about. I know all three candidates that ran in the election. I know student voters that I've interacted with. This is the consensus. And so as like the head of our organization, I think like we need to respond to the consensus that we're hearing come in and out of the office and then, Chairman Olson heard all semester.
All right, we're going to go back to accepting new points of debate on this subject. Senator Ricker.
Yeah, something to know is that on the Thursday and Friday before spring break, some clubs do not have meetings on that kind of those 2 days because of a lot of students were kicked out of the dorms and they just having clubs on those 2 days are just like problematic. So as a candidate who's running and wants to hit as many different students as possible, it can be difficult to hit every club or every group when they're not in the meeting because they have big old deadlines for it.
Representative Direction?
So, just to like keep in, to cite, your campaign, you were like, have mentioned about how you want to engage in more student engagement and bringing bridges across for different organizations, be just general students. If the election is put during probably the most busiest time of any semester, and that's just like the given. I think it would like, it would really set us in like a weird position where a lot of students were like, wow, like they want to engage with this stuff, even though they placed it during midterms. Like, it's kind of like a double negative. So I would be in favor of this because it gives a lot of people time, and of course, it's citing other people who have mentioned this, it gives people time to prepare either for voters or candidates, and it also gives people time to just plan the actual campaign or the campaign, the election. So I think this would be beneficial to all of us because placing it during a time that's so busy, like we have the option to move it, so I think we should.
Great. Senator Stewart.
I think we've heard everything we needed to hear today. I think.
Based on what Keegan has said, and his recommendations and other senators of what their struggles have been during the election time, I think giving people more time and making it less hectic would be good for everybody.
Senator Rocky.
I just want to point out that, like, some Chaplain said, it doesn't give us any more time than we have. We already given the time, it's like, it's just an enforced listed. I'm not gonna it's good or bad, it doesn't give us anything.
I got a good feeling I know what you're gonna do, so I'm gonna give Senator Bohm I'm gonna give him the last word and then we'll move on.
Our current, like, I guess incumbent, FEPC chair has been made aware of this. So I don't know why this doesn't just become a recommendation during the onboarding process. Like, the students feel like they should have this, but it also doesn't make us stuck where we're in a position where we have to. And if something comes up that needs to be addressed right beforehand, or if a major event happens in Maine at that point, like, we can respond to it and we have wiggle room. And we would lose that if we pass this, but the information can still be shared without forcing us and forcing our hand.
Senator Buzzell.
These questions.
All those in favor of moving to previous? Up high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, perfect. All those opposed? All those abstaining? All those in favor of the resolution as is? All right, all those opposed? All those abstaining? Seeing a clear majority in the affirmative, that passes. We are now moving on to 45S EXC 088, an act to revise the financial politics. They're gonna be on the non-executive.
No.
From the executive committee.
Meeting medals.
Okay, hi everyone. This resolution seeks to do what is the last thing we can do this semester to set up the student legal services equity policy, and also to put in place the ability for the president and vice president for financial affairs to work over the summer should a legal or audit emergency arise. So part one of this seeks to do that second thing that I said, where the president and EPFA shall be compensated for their work during vacations on any and all legal or audit emergencies at the advisement of the attorney, ABPFA, and PAM should they arise. So our job descriptions earlier this semester were revised to allow for this. It is not an unreasonable thought to think that a legal or audit emergency should arise over the summer. And in the event that that does happen, given that the president supervises the attorney and the vice president for financial affairs supervises the ABPFA, these two people should clearly be allowed to work over that time to address or be brought in on any pertinent discussions that are happening while they are on break. That's the first part of this resolution, and it amends the financial policies and the hiring policies to do that. So this would need a 2/3 majority vote in the affirmative by the Senate. The second part of this simply amends the financial policies to enact all of the changes that we've already talked about in a previous resolution to create the fund for legal compensation and legal fund for legal advice, and then the legal fund for legal representation, the things we've been talking about all semester. So this simply does that. The only thing that it does not do, because it was done too late, is appropriate money in the annual budget to allow for those funds to exist. So that's the only other thing that would have to happen for that, but this policy would be in effect in our bylaws for a long time. Unless they would change. Yeah.
Great, do we have questions for the speaker, Senator Bum?
So I think this is two when they're kind of separated, like a combined resolution.
I figured that they were things that we'd already talked about, that they weren't really widely contested issues that the Senate has by and large already voted on twice separately, to just put them in one resolution and vote on them one time instead of spending our time going through Robert's rules, discussing, debating, voting, accepting committee recommendation on two different resolutions.
And correct me if I'm wrong, one wouldn't really make sense without the other. Right?
No, they're two different policies.
Okay, that was a fair question. All right, my bad. Senator Kemper.
Who supervises Jeff, and is Jeff included in this whole thing?
The vice president supervises Jeff, and Jeff would not be included in this because he's a record keeper of a lot of things that go on in our meetings in the GSS. And any record keeping that would need to be done for a legal or audit emergency wouldn't necessarily be an emergency over a vacation that Pam or Sean couldn't accomplish by themselves.
Senator Martone.
Do you know of any emergencies that have happened in the past where this legislation that have been changed to have on a base?
I have to be careful how I answer that. It has been very likely that could have happened.
Great.
In my time with the other.
Senator Rocky.
Do you ever anticipate a need for, say, the BPSO to be paid over the time?
It's a fair question, and I have talked about this with Sean, and as I mentioned during the inauguration, current execs are onboarding their new execs. One thing that I'll be talking with Keegan about, that I haven't really necessarily formally talked with him about yet, is creating policy next year that allows execs to come in 1 week earlier for their own onboarding or for welcome weekends to be trained for that, to move into their new office. That is not written in this policy, and I don't think it's an emergency policy that I felt that I had the time to devote to this semester, but is something we talked about for a long time. That is a separate issue, but I think that there could be in the future, with the Senate, for those of you that are going to be here next year, a policy that does address that for onwards.
Future college chair, if you're in here. Any further questions for the speaker? Senator Bum.
What is the expected cost of an audit emergency on like our now?
I believe. I don't think this resolution really said it, could be completely wrong. But I don't think, in discussing with Sean, I don't think it would be more than like 10 or 15 hours throughout the whole vacation, whatever that may be. And that's for a summer vacation that's like 3 months long. So for context, I work 15 hours a week. I receive a bi-weekly paycheck for a total of 30 hours, and I think it's like a $450 paycheck. So that's at 30 hours. So that can be it.
Any further questions? All right, seeing none, what is the committee's recommendation?
This is voted on the recommendation, here be the law passed.
Senator Martel,
I move to accept the committee's recommendation.
if that goes to the Senate, that's adopted. Moving to a period for discussion. Seeing, Senator Martel,
Well, it does seem like this event,
this is discussion or debate?
oh,
Alright, discussion. Debate, Senator Martel.
it does seem like this, an emergency situation like this could happen in the future. I think that, people should get paid over the summer for their work.
Alan?
Yeah, in addition to like legal things, the audit always happens during the summer, and while we've always had a successful audit. There is like a chance that we could, potentially not have a successful audit, and that work would need to be completed by the BPFA, whatever work that may be. So I think it's very important that the BPFA be like potentially paid for this work, because there would be enough work that warranted summer compensation if the audit were to not go as planned. Not that that's best case scenario, but just putting that out there.
Any further points for debate? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? Seeing a clear majority in the affirmative, that passes. Being no more items under new business, we will now be entering executive session. Will the clerk please call the roll? Thank you for coming.